I created this channel to bring Russian MMA closer to the worldwide audiences, to help people be more informed about all things Russian MMA. Now, one MMA adjacent podcast that gets things wrong about Russian MMA all the time is The Fighter and the Kid. So today's video is going to focus on correcting some of the false narratives or adding context to their discussions from the show. Purpose of this video isn't to tear down two podcasters, but to give them and their listeners correct information about topics often discussed on the show. I've been planning to do so for a while, and UFC 311 Fight Week seems like a great moment to do so. Let's start.
You know what kind of looks Sarukian gets in Russia, where he trains in the mountains? I don't even know where he does. Great looks. Great looks.
Both get pretty good looks. Russian MMA scene is extremely strong, and it ain't lacking good training partners. I already made a video about Islam's training partners and coaches prior to his fight with Dustin, and this time around, it's mostly the same names involved. I also mentioned one of Arman's training partners in a video I did about 5 fighters that would be UFC title contenders if they were signed. Edward Vartanyan, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in Russia for the past decade.
But I would imagine that Islam is also getting great looks. And is there an argument to be made that AKA gets more of a diverse, higher level fighter?
No, because he's not really training at AKA, right? He's in
not.
Dagestan with his team.
I always think of him as at AKA, though.
He would come there sometimes when Khabib was active, but most of his camp's still in Dagestan.
It is.
Yeah, with Khabib. They'd take advantage of it.
Does Khabib not live in Abu Dhabi?
Khabib lives in Dagestan. He did live in Abu Dhabi for a while until his tax problems got resolved, but now that they are, he's back in his homeland.
No, I think they might be fighting out of Abu Dhabi or something. I don't know. I don't think they fight out of Dagestan anymore. I don't think they've done that in a minute. And I thought that Khabib was always at AKA, always.
You know, remember his dad was his trainer? His dad didn't live in AKA in San Jose. His gym's in Dagestan. So, but remember, his gym also got shut down for some.
That's what I'm saying.
Some ties to some stuff. So
not stuff, terrorism.
Yeah,
well,
sure. You said it, not me.
Russian terrorism.
A fighter that passed through the gym 3 years prior to the attack was involved, and Jim got investigated and paused all training cause of the investigation for a week or so. It quickly resumed operating. There was no meaningful connection between the gym and the attack.
So, hey, do this, Jin. Where is Khabib's gym? That might help us.
Ooh, hold on.
Yeah,
First Khabib,
Abu Dhabi.
Gym, Palm Sports, and Yazan.
Yeah, they're probably training in Abu Dhabi, but they definitely have everything they need there. Now,
I think if he's in the U.S., he's at AK, but the majority of his time
is Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this "where do they train" mess. Brandon was correct all along, but with little bit of confusion and bad Googling, they strayed away from the correct answer. Dagestan, Russia, is where they train at. At their gym called Abdulmanap School, named after Khabib's late father. That's where bulk of their camp is spent as well. They come in and visit AKA from time to time, but Islam didn't hold a fight camp there in a while. Past couple of camps have mostly been spent in Russia and Dubai, which now have great facilities and, as previously mentioned, training partners aren't lacking. They fly out to acclimate near fight destination few weeks prior to the fight date, and since they've been fighting in Middle East lately, coming to AKA didn't make a lot of sense. Interestingly, this time it was Vegas, and not AKA even though fight is in California. That last part of the camp is when AKA's head coach Javier Mendez joins them. As for Khabib having a gym in Dubai, it's just good business to open up affiliate gyms.
Hey, Chin, do me a favor. Bring up how many gold medals Dagestanians won in the Olympics.
In this year or all time?
I think they'd go under Russia, wouldn't they?
Sure, put under Russia. And show you that Americans have better wrestling. Oh, weird. So, hold on here. We have 26 more golds? Japan's number 2?
If their producer knew how to use Google better, he would have easily corrected Brendan here. Soviet Union, which ceased to exist more than 30 years ago, still has more Olympic gold medals from wrestling in its cabinet than the US. That includes freestyle, Greco-Roman and women's freestyle. At World Championships situation is even more in favour of Russia, which perfectly demonstrates its dominance for past 30 years. Russia, excluding Soviet period, so basically since 1991, has more gold medals than the US has in its entire history. If you combined Soviet medals and Russian ones, it'd be more than double amount of US medals. US is great at wrestling, and they do dominate, but not as much as Russia does.
But that camp,
Different
there's a work ethic in Khabib's camp.
That sets them apart.
Yes, that I think what is demanded of them, the strict adherence to training and living clean, is what I would say is the edge.
And you think that's only at his camp?
That camp has a lot of good fighters, but Khabib, Islam, Umar and Usman are special. Level above everyone else from that gym. Many quality fighters train there, and if were to be given a chance, could collect wins or even contend in UFC. But also there are some average fighters training there as well, like in any other camp.
Give me the number of Americans. Bring up all the rankings again. Let me show you something.
Just the rankings.
Show you something.
Brendan then went on to point out how many more American fighters are ranked in UFC. It's a flawed argument, and here's why. UFC is first and foremost American promotion with most of its audience in US. So of course there are more ranked US fighters than Russian. There are 218 US fighters in UFC roster, while Russia has, drumroll please, 22. Yup, not a fair comparison. There are plenty of great Russian fighters that would be ranked if were to be signed, but UFC doesn't want to do so. Last year's PFL Grand Prix is a nice example, since they have been signing a lot of Russian talent lately. Out of the 5 male champions, 4 came from Russia, 3 from Dagestan. I also previously made a video about fighters that could contend for UFC titles based on their quality if they were to be signed. But they ain't getting signed. I'll end on this note. US has more MMA talent than Dagestan at the top of the sport, but it also has 330 million more people. If we look at the whole of Russia versus USA, gap narrows, and I'm not sure who comes out on top there. Would be great if we had a chance to find out, but we won't if UFC continues their recent talent signing policy.